Okay, this is Andrew. I'm going to show you my my add key code, and walk through it a little bit and give you an explanation. So let's get started. Um, so basically, we've talked about this add key function, and what it needs to do is take a 128-bit 16-byte block of data and a 128-bit 16-byte password, and XOR those two together, and then display the state table out to the web page. Okay, so I've declared some initial variables up here. You can take a look at those, but basically uh, I have three parts of code here. And they're all pretty similar. This is the input for the key. This is the hex key, the password data, and then this is the block that functions on the this functions on the data, and then this block down here is the data and the XOR. Okay, so you get the idea. So there's three. So basically, what we're gonna do is we're gonna take this string or stream of input of password, and we're going to convert it all to hex and organize it into the block of 16 bytes, which is called a state in the AES terminology. So to do that, basically I've just got a nested for loop. So right now, just look at the code between these two lines, and then I probably won't explain this one because it's pretty much the same, but I might quickly look at this one. So yeah, basically this is just a nested for loop, and this runs through the rows of the table. So this would be your first row, and then it builds the column. So it's going to do the first row, and then a second, third, fourth, and then the second row, second, third, fourth column. So it's going to build your, I hope that makes sense. So let me show you here. It's going to build your table like this. So it's going to go, let's look at the code while we do this. First it's gonna go in here, and it's gonna say, okay, I equals 0, continue. Now it's gonna say j equals 0, so go into this loop. So now it's gonna do this loop, j equals 1, j equals 2, j equals 3, and then it's gonna come out and hit this loop and say, oh, I equals 1, and then it's gonna go back into for loop, 1, 2, 3, and then it's gonna come out to i's 2. And the way it's building the table at that time is like this. It's you see here, it's building the row is 1, so the row is that way, and the column is adding new like this, and then it goes up to whatever value j is, right? But I gave it here, column and row is 4, then it stops at column stops, so it's going to stop at 3. Alright, so then the same thing happens. It just goes to, it comes back up here and it goes to the next row. So now row is 1. First it was 0, and then it goes this way, and then that. So you get the idea. Alright, so then when you're in there, I'm making a table, right? So here's my table, and I'm echoing out to the table. So what I'm doing is here you need to call a pad function, right? So what if you only input 12 characters for this password? Well, you need to go to a conditional statement that says if password is more than 16 characters, then it's invalid password, display that to the user, things like that. And then if it's less than 8, say, well, that's too small, enter at least 8. And then if it's like 8, then it can be padded the rest of the way. So what I'm doing here is I'm doing string length, but the string length is going to be the string length -1. If you look at column count, this is a variable I have down here that started at 0, so it's keeping count of every time through the loop, because the first time I come in, it's like 0 up here, then it's 0 here, and it gets here, and this guy says, okay, 1. That means you've been through this loop 1 time. So now he goes through here 2, 3, 4 times, and then he comes out and goes back into this loop, and he goes 2. It's just keeping track of how many times you've been through this loop, right? And then I'm moving that over here. I'm saying, okay, well, if you've been through 1 time, then the length of my string is 1 less. If you've been through 2 times, the length of my string is 2 less. If you've been through 3 times, the length of my string is 3 less. And I'm doing that because what I'm doing is using, you can always go to the PHP.NET's great. So this is the substring I used. So basically, this is just creating a string out of a string, right? And you can read these instructions, but basically what I have to do is give the length of the string I want. So the second time through, maybe I want it 2 less. So basically I'm just removing 2 off of the string. And what's the purpose of that? Because if you go to ORD, what ORD does is it pulls the first one off, right? It pulls the first one off, and then it makes the hex number. It makes the decimal ASCII number. Okay, so remember this table? If I still have it open. So for whatever the character was there, whatever the character was on that string, or that substring, the first one, it gets its ASCII value, okay, and it puts its ASCII value in the password ASCII decimal, okay, and then it comes out here and I'm doing decimal to hex, okay, and then I'm saying, oh, this is it, okay. And then I'm echoing it to the table. So right here, it's taken the decimal ASCII, converted it to a hexadecimal, and Xing it out to the table in this location. The next time it cuts it down, I think of it, it's really pulling out a substring, but I just think of it as shifting the byte over and dropping off the left value, and then taking the next value and looking at getting the ASCII value for that in decimal, and then we'll convert it to hex. So in that manner, we get the whole string up to 16 bytes, because up to 16 bits, because 4 times 4 is 16, to convert to hex and to put in our table right here. So this is echoing it to the table, and we'll take a look at that. So basically, the next block of code is just copied it, pasted it. It's the same thing. I just changed some of the variables, because you're putting in a data length instead of password length. Shift password, I'm shifting data, and data ASCII decimal, and data ASCII decimal echoed out. So then the echo, this is building another table and echoing that out. And then basically this again is just the same thing, but it's just doing the exclusive OR of the data and the password. So right here it's just doing the exclusive OR. Right here it's doing the exclusive OR, and then it's taking it, put it in there. This is called array push. So you can go back to PHP.NET and look at array push. Array push is, so if I have each time through the loop, so let's say my array, these aren't pictures anymore. Let's say this is an array, and I have an array of 4 elements, right? Let's say I have an array of 4 elements. Well, when I do array push right here, so see, you can see I initialized it up here at 0. Should be initialized here. Yeah, I initialized it at 0. So what does that mean? Output XOR array. So that means it's actually a null array. There's no, it doesn't have any pieces in it at all. So the first time through that loop, it's going to show up with a piece like this, right? And then the next time through the loop, it's going to add a piece onto that array. So it's actually what's called a dynamic array. In a way, it's growing. That array is growing. Each time through the for loop, it's growing bigger. And this is going to be actually the output. See, that's what I call it, output XOR. This is going to be the output of the add key. So this is your XOR data, and this goes out. Now the purpose of putting these to the screen here, the data and the key and hex, is to make sure you got it right. Okay, so that's what you want to do for troubleshooting, so you can start following along where your problems are. Okay, so let me give you an example here. Okay, so here's my function and I run it. And I come up with this. So here's my 3 tables. This is my key. So this is the password I put in. This is the input data, and this is the output data. So if you go over here and look, I chose these for some reason. We'll see later. The password was ABCD up to P in caps, and then same thing, but in low. So we go over here, back to our ASCII table. We can see that's different, right? A starts here at 61, and let's see. Yeah, I think smaller ones are down here. Okay, so capital A is 41 and lowercase a is 61. So 61, 62, 63, 69, 6A, 6B. So you see that. So what happened? Alright, so my input data was capital for the password. And if you look over here, you can see that's 41, 42, 43, 44. So it stamped them out in that array loop. It built the table and then filled in the data in the table. And then did the same thing for the, well, that was the password. And then did the same thing for the data here, but using the lowercase. So it starts at 61, 62, 63, 64, 65. And you can see 61, 62. This looks suspicious, but it's not, because watch this. Alright, so if you go to a bitwise calculator in hexadecimal, now let's take capital A with little a, which was 61 lowercase a, and 41 capital A. So let's put those in here. We're on hexadecimal. This is the hexadecimal exclusive OR. We're going to do 41 and we're going to do 61. There we go. So exclusive OR. So the result is 20, and the result in decimal is 32. So the result of my table now if you keep working through these, you'll still get 20 on all of these. So let's do 40. Let's try 43, which is C. I don't know why this is so slow because I'm recording and got all these things open. Okay, let's try 63 and 43. Okay, 43 and 63. So it's 22. So if you do all those, you'll get 20 on all of these because of the way the numbers are laid out here. That's why I chose them that way. Okay, so that's the add key function, kind of. You're still going to have to figure out how to pass the variables, and you're still going to have to do the pad function. But, basically the add key is done for you. So you take the output, that's this array, out of here, and you put that into, well, for the add, initially it'll go into subbytes, right? And then the second time it'll go, those 9 times through the loops, it all goes back into subbytes. And then the last time it goes into subbytes down here, and then just leave off your mix columns on the last byte, on the last loop. So I hope that helps you out. Like I said, whatever you want to do. If you want to just you could just use this to check your code. You can use this to see what kind of functions I'm using here, to how I'm using the for loops. Whatever you want to do. You can pretty much make this function this code, or you can totally change it and make it something totally different. Either way is fine with me. So have fun. All right.